Hello and welcome to Catamount Community Connection, our weekly 1-hour program here on Catamount Radio. I'm Brian Collamore. Each week we talk with leaders from the business, professional, nonprofit, and political arenas. Our show brought to you by the Rutland County Agricultural Society, which has brought you the Vermont State Fair at Rutland since almost before the Civil War, believe it or not. And we're looking forward to the 180th Vermont State Fair coming up in August of this year, and we thank them for their continuing support of the program. So we are going to speak today with two members of the House of Representatives, and I'm very honored to have Pattie McCoy, who is from the Poultney area. She is the minority leader in the Vermont House and also sits on the House Transportation Committee, and Tom Burditt from West Rutland, who is on the, in fact, he's vice chair of the House Judiciary Committee. So welcome into both of you. I think you've both been on before, but I can't remember. This is something like the 110th show we've done, so I sort of lose track with who was here with us at one point and who wasn't. But Pattie, if you want, we'll start with you. Just a brief bio, who you are, how you came to decide to run for office. I know you and I came in the same year. Tom's a little more veteran at it. And tell us about yourself, I guess.
Okay, so Pattie McCoy, thank you for having me, Senator Collamore.
No problem.
Brian. I was the town clerk and treasurer for Poultney, Vermont for 26 years, having moved up in this area because my college sweetheart and now husband lived in Whitehall, New York. His parents lived in Whitehall. So we settled in Poultney, raised 3 daughters there who, interestingly enough, have all moved out of state for greener pastures, I guess, because it's so expensive to live in this state. And I was getting ready to retire from clerkdom, and then Representative Andy Donahue came in and said he wasn't running again. So that was my impetus, and Senator Flory suggested maybe I run for it, and I've been here this is our 12th year, I believe, serving on first Human Services and then Commerce and now on Transportation. Yeah,
and Peg Flory was, she and Kevin Mullen, who were my 2 seatmates the first term, both lied to me. They said that, it'll just take a couple hours a day. You could drive back and forth. It's really not that big a deal. And, of course, it's a lot more than that if you want it to be. And if you take the job, in my view, you should work hard at it and try your best to represent yourself. So it's a little more involved than what Senator Flory told me it would be. But anyway, yeah, so you have moved, obviously, from the Healthcare Committee to Transportation. And we could talk a lot about how the federal government interacts with the state in terms of grants and percentages of sharing in whatever funding is available. But you also are the minority leader, and you've been there 10 years?
My 8th year.
8th, okay.
2 years prior to that, I was the second assistant minority leader, which Representative Burditt now holds that position. Okay.
And Tom, welcome in.
Thank you.
I know you're from West Side. And you are now 16 years, I think, into the process. So you probably know more than Pattie and I in terms of the process of how this all kind of falls together. But tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to be in the House.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I won't admit to knowing more than you guys, but I'll admit to having a couple more years. But yeah, I was born and brought up in Rutland, and now I'm lucky enough to live on a piece of the old family farm in West Rutland. My family, my great-great-grandfather owned a farm on Clarendon Avenue in West Rutland, which most people know as Dodd's Farm.
Okay.
And so anyway, yeah, I ended up moving over to West Rutland, and it's almost 30 years ago. This April will be 30 years that I've been over there, and it's a great town. But the reason I ran originally was because families were breaking up in Vermont because the youth were moving, and Pattie just alluded to that her children have moved out of state, as mine have. My son's out in the Seattle area, and my daughter's down in North Carolina in Asheville. And my the idea that I had when I went to Montpelier was that I was going to change that.
We all have that feeling, I think.
Oh, definitely. And it turns out that one person can't change things, but if if you can get enough people to collaborate, you can change things, and we're still working on it. Changing those things, but.
Now, whose seat did you take? I'm just
Joe Baker.
Okay, yeah.
Who is West Rutland? Joe was originally from Proctor, so he was a local boy, and he's still in the state. He lives up in Addison County now.
I think he just ran and didn't lose by much, and I heard he's going to run again.
Yeah, I've talked to Joe. I do talk to him on occasion, and he is planning on running again. He had a setback during the election where he wasn't able to campaign as hard as he wanted to, but he's ready to go and working hard up in that area to get reelected.
And were you on judiciary from the get-go, or did you go through some other committee assignments first?
No, like Patty, I started on human services. My first 4 years were on human services, and now I'm in my 12th year on judiciary. And started out as just a member on the committee. Shap Smith, who was the speaker at the time, he appointed me ranking member, and then he also appointed me as the vice chair of the committee. And I've been the vice chair now, I think, for 10 years.
Okay.
10 years, yeah.
I know you were largely responsible for inviting the current speaker, Joe Krowinski, to come down this summer. She's a member of the other party. The three of us are in the Republican Party. But I know that you consider her a personal friend, and I thought it was a great idea to have her come down and give us her ideas. I think that was in maybe August. I can't remember what month it was, but whenever it was. What she kind of felt would be issues in the upcoming session, and what she felt were important issues, and then heard from, there were probably 10 or 12 of the local delegation there, and I thought it was a great idea. I'd like to see more of that, I think.
Oh, I agree. I mean, just because people disagree politically, it doesn't mean that they can't be friends.
Yeah.
There's some people out there that think, if you're friends with somebody from the other side of the aisle, that you're going to be swayed by them, and that type of thing, which for me certainly isn't true. Jill was appointed when she first came in 15 years ago, and she was appointed to the Human Services Committee. So that's how long I've known Jill, is 15 years, and we have built a friendship through the years.
Yeah,
and to the point that that I can call her. She'll answer the phone, and she'll come down and talk to us. And one nice thing that happened when she did come down to tell us, her ideas on Montpelier in Vermont, is we got a tour of the Marble Village apartments that recently opened in West Rutland.
Yeah, that was nice. So while we have Patty, because I know you want to talk about a couple of specific bills with public safety attached, Tom. Unfortunately, we're recording this on the 19th of January. Tomorrow, on the 20th, and by the time this program airs, that will be 5 days ago, because it won't air until this coming Sunday. I don't remember the date, but whatever it is. The budget address will be delivered tomorrow as we're recording this, so we have no way to react to it or tell you what we think about it. But the governor will be addressing a joint session on the 20th with his budget address, the so-called governor's recommend, as we move further through the process. In other words, his ideas about how to take the current budget and disperse it into the various agencies. And I know that most of the folks who run the agencies were asked to stay 3% above where they were the year before. Even level funding would be better, but in no case could it go over that 3%. And I know that there were at least a couple agencies that came back initially over that, And he called them in and he said, no, you're not listening closely enough. Here's what I need you to do. And they did go back and make some cuts. So we're assuming, and again, that's the danger of recording this before the budget address, that we can probably guess about certain things that will be in the budget address, but not all of them, and maybe not to the granular degree we might want to. The biggest issue, I think, for the entire General Assembly this year is the whole educational reform piece. I don't think there's any way around that. It's going to demand the most attention from both education committees in each chamber, and then eventually the floor on both sides. Hopefully we get something done by the end of the session. And it will, in some ways, transform both the governance of what we have now and the funding. And I don't know where that's going to go, but if we do nothing right now without any intervention by the General Assembly, the prediction, at least from Bill Schuldice, who's the tax commissioner, was that most communities, not every one of them, but on average, would see an 11.9% increase in property taxes because of the educational costs. So we rounded up to 12%. The governor's plan, and he made this public a while back, was to spend $75 million of what is in the surplus right now in the general fund and move that over and, in essence, buy down that property tax rate. It would go from, well, let's say 12% down to somewhere around 6.5% or 7%. And there would still be a little bit of that surplus left for other things. I have a feeling that it will be more than $75 million that he will tell us about in his budget address. I don't know what the number is going to be. We had certain indications from him a couple of weeks ago that it would be more than 75, but he wouldn't say what the number was going to be. But to me, that's the biggest issue of this whole session. And if we can get things in place, if we come up with district maps and we come up with a foundation formula and we come up with the way that the school boards will be elected in those various districts, we'll be well on our way. It would also include classroom sizes. And, I'll let Patty chime in. We've got fewer kids in the school system right now, or pre-K through 12, than we've had in a long time. The costs are higher. Some 41% increase over the last 4 or 5 years. And the test scores, they're not the worst in the country, but they're not the best in the country. They're not even halfway. Well, I think we're about halfway there. So we have a state like, and the governor used this in the State of the State address, Mississippi, in essence, where I think if you ask most people normally, they would feel that Vermont sort of does a better job at most things than the state of Mississippi for obvious reasons. It's a very rural, very poor state. The fact is, they grabbed this whole education piece by the throat and made changes, and they are on their way to a better place, I think. So as a sort of opening, that's what I think. There'll be other issues for sure. We're going to talk about environmental reform, I think, again. To Tom Burditt's point, we're going to talk about public safety again, healthcare costs, all of that stuff. But to me, the big piece this year is the educational reform.
I would have to agree, too. We didn't get it done last year. We set up a task force to work over the summer and fall and come back with a couple of maps that the legislature could look at and vote on. One task this task force had and failed at that. They have no maps to bring forward. So, and as you have mentioned, Governor this year has said that he'll probably take $75 million of the surplus to put back into education to reduce that 12%. Vermonters just simply can't afford an additional average 12% increase in their taxes once again. And if you'll recall, 2 years ago, we put in $96 million to lower that 20% down to 13.8, so let's say 14% average. Last year, we put in $70 million to reduce the then 7%, I think, back down to a manageable 3 or 4%. So we're looking at that once again. And the state of Vermont and the citizens of the state can no longer afford year in and year out to deal with this. So we, as a legislative body, need to take the bulls by the horn and get it done this session. If you recall, last session, we were here until the end of May to try to get it done and did not. And we had to come back in June, which was the veto day, to actually have that committee of conference come back with a plan, which had this task force involved. And we passed it then, but we still haven't done anything on it. To my knowledge, they're still just, and the education committee is kind of just talking things over again. We're already 2 weeks into the session. We're going to start our third week next week. We have 18 weeks to get this done. Now we're down to 16 weeks. We need to start, and we need to start now.
I do want to point out, because oftentimes I get to as many school board meetings in Rutland County as we can, and most of the time, the school boards in Rutland County are very fiscally responsible. They don't overspend. They don't spend willy-nilly on stuff that they don't need to. So when I say it's a 12%, I think that it's on average, that not every community would be looking at that. Some of them will be much lower, and unfortunately, most of the communities to the north could be much higher. And so I don't know where we're going to end up with that. I also want to make a point that, at least for me, I don't want to be in a position where the legislature is going to choose which school will close. I don't know how else to say it. There's going to be some consolidation efforts, I think, and I don't know which ones. I have no idea, but I think it should be a local decision to the greatest extent possible. So, for instance, as far as I understand, we have 7 high schools in Rutland County. We have students enough, if you look at what normally would happen, to fill 5 of those schools. And I'm just using raw numbers here. We don't have enough kids in some of those schools that make it economically feasible to keep going the way we are. You still got to electrify the school. You got to heat it. You got to have people come in and plow the parking lots. So I don't know what schools are going to close. I have no idea. I would rather not be in a position where I'm going to say this is the school that's closing and the kids that went there are now going to go over here. But that will be true in a lot of communities coming up, and I don't see any other way to do it. The task force made a big decision, I think, that they could not see savings by reducing the number of school districts. I'm not sure I could follow the logic of that. I think as you begin to consolidate central offices and administrative offices, that you have to have some savings. I don't know how else you could do it.
So, I'm going to channel former Representative Larry Coopely on this one, because for years his mantra was one school district. And he would always tout Hawaii, because Hawaii has one school district. If I'm not mistaken, they have 7 islands in
Something
Hawaii.
Like that,
yeah. And they managed to have one school district and get to the other island via boat or plane. It's doable, and I believe they have less students than we do. We have 119 school districts serving about 80,000 students. So I would say probably roughly the size of Providence, Rhode Island. Yeah. And Providence certainly doesn't have 119 school districts. So we really have to take a deep dive into that. Is it the 5 districts that the governor asked for last year? Is it 10 that I've heard kind of the legislature kind of throwing around that number? Is it 14, 1 per county? I don't know what the answer is, but it certainly is much less than 119 school districts. Each one of them has, there's 57 superintendents of schools. There's just a lot of that upper administration that I think we can consolidate, and that in and of itself will save money.
So again, unfortunately, we can't speak about what the governor's recommended budget will be, because the 3 of us are recording this program before the budget address, which happens tomorrow for us. But by the time you hear this show, it will have happened 4 or 5 days in the past. And we're talking today with Representatives Pattie McCoy from Poultney, the minority leader and a member of the House Transportation Committee, and Tom Burditt from West Rutland, who is the vice chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee and has a little bit more experience than Pattie and I. We're both entering our 12th year. Tom has been hanging around now for 16 years. So and it's interesting, you both mentioned that you started, as I did, in the healthcare committee.
Human Services.
Okay, but from the Senate point of view, it's called Health and Welfare. It's the same sort of jurisdictional patterns. I just find that interesting.
It used to be in the House. They used to be combined.
Okay.
And then back during the days of, I guess people refer to it as Shumlin Care.
Yeah.
They separated human services and health care because the health care piece was going to be getting so involved.
Yeah. I often wonder whether part of that is that the same chair kind of stays there for a while and can bring new legislators in and get them up to speed. I don't know whether that's true. It is from my experience in the Senate. When I came in, Claire Ayer was the senator from Addison who had been the chair of Senate Health and Welfare for a long time. And then when she retired, about halfway through my tenure, Senator Ginny Lyons from Chittenden took over as chair. And she was the vice chair for many years. So I think the new people kind of have a tendency to get appointed there so they can get their feet wet and understand the process kind of thing. I did not choose to. In fact, I requested that I not serve a second term on health and welfare, and I went to agriculture, and I've been there ever since. So this will be my 10th year in the Senate Agriculture Committee. For many years, chaired by Senator Bobby Starr from up north, and he was an excellent chair, and I learned so much from him. He happened to actually be in the building a couple weeks ago, and I had a chance to say hi. So besides education, Pattie, what other sort of issues can you foresee coming up that have a real direct impact on Rutland County? Because that's what this show's sort of focused on, all 27 towns in the county and the issues that will impact them. Well, I mentioned housing earlier. I probably should have, because that's certainly part of all of this, I guess, right?
Yeah. So there are a couple of omnibus bills coming through. One of them, I believe Rep. Burditt will talk about a bit, is the public safety bill, which I think a lot of people in Rutland County are concerned about. Top of the list, bail reform. I'm sure he'll speak about that, so I'll defer to him on that one. Also, housing. We have to ease Act 250 restrictions if we're going to be able to make any headway in housing. And this is definitely a concern for Rutland County because we are very rural, and we set up 2 years ago, through the Environment Committee, tiers. Yes. Tier 1, Tier 1A, Tier B, 1B. And, it's prohibitive for rural counties to actually build housing for people. So that is one of the big things that we absolutely need to ease restrictions on Act 250. Healthcare, as you mentioned, has become. I'm sure you as well have heard from some of your constituents on how much their health insurance costs have increased heavily due to what's happening. The Affordable Care Act credit has gone away. So I know the federal government is working on that, but in the meantime, these people are still paying their monthly premiums that have skyrocketed. So we have, we're taking a little bit of a dive into that. And the last one is energy, which I presented the governor's bill, the omnibus bill on that, one of which was to look into the possibility of nuclear. It's the cleanest form of energy. And they have these new SMRs, small modular reactors. It's not like a Vernon. They're smaller. They're much more safe. And just to start the conversation, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Massachusetts, New York, and I believe Maine have looked into this and are either in the middle of a permitting process or they have just passed laws to begin the permitting process. So in my mind, we're already behind the 8 ball because these other states have already taken a leap and looked into that and have decided, yes, we need to look into this.
I want to give kudos as well to Representative Eric McGuire. He was on our show last week, and Rutland became ground zero, if you will, for the homeless population, both from out of state, to be fair, and then from in-state, but from other counties up north that have migrated down. And he's got a bill that he and his chair, Teresa Wood, the chair of the Health Services Committee, have put in play. I don't remember the number. It's got 3 numbers, so it's 494 or 497 or something like that. But one of the elements of that is to drastically change that hotel-motel program by taking money away from it and putting it instead into a program which will allow people to, quote, return home. So if they've lived somewhere else but found themselves here in the state of Vermont but unable to find housing, this would, I don't know how else to say it, provide a ticket on a bus or some sort of money to transport them back to perhaps families in other states and kind of reunite people and thereby lessening the burden of the homelessness. So we'll see what happens with that bill. As I said to Eric, and he's certainly aware of it, rarely does it happen that a bill is introduced and not one comma, period, or capitalization changed. I mean, it'll get changed. There's no way around that. It'll get out, hopefully get out of committee first and then to the House floor and then get sent across to the Senate for further consideration. So I was very interested in that bill, and I give him a lot of credit. I think he worked hard all summer long to come up with the ideas that are in that, and we'll have to see how things go. So
a little piece on that, Brian, if you don't mind.
Not at all.
I talked to Eric extensively on the piece where to send people home, and it's not just give them a bus ticket and send them on their way. I believe it is the bus ticket for starters, and they have to have a connection. They have to have wraparound services where they're going, so they don't end up. It's a compassionate thing, really, so they don't end up back on the street, and alone like they are here. It's just one of the things that needs to happen to alleviate the problem we have here in Rutland County and the state as far as the homeless goes.
Yeah, and he was very clear, and I probably, as you were saying that, Tom, thought, boy, I sounded awful mean there for a second, like, pack your bag and get the heck out of here. We've had enough of it. It does have an element of compassion. And the other thing it had, and I was very happy to see this, because I think one of the main problems with the hotel-motel program is we did not require the owners of the hotels and motels to offer services to the folks that were there to help them get off that thing, whatever it was, whether it was substance abuse or they couldn't find a job or whatever it is. We just let them come in and stay, and we never had any sort of accountability. So Eric's bill does have accountability built into it. And again, I'm very grateful to his hard work and want to see how that goes. All right, so we're talking to Representative Pattie McCoy, Representative Tom Burditt. We're going to take our first break here on Catamount Community Connection, and we will be back with our guests in just a minute. Welcome back to Catamount Community Connection, our weekly public affairs program here at Catamount Radio. The show brought to you by the Rutland County Agricultural Society, which has brought you the Vermont State Fair at Rutland since well into the 1800s. In fact, it's only a little bit younger than the history of the country. The country will celebrate their 250th birthday this year, and the fair will be 180 years old when it convenes in August of this year. Very grateful to the fair for their continued support of the program, and very happy that, on occasion I'll hear people tell me that they do listen and appreciate what we try to do each week. It's an hour-long show. We put it across all 5 stations, and people get an idea of what's going on in various departments and businesses throughout the state. So we're talking today with Representative Tom Burditt, who lives in West Rutland, spent the first few years of his life in Rutland at a family farm, and then moved over to West Side and has been there about 30 years, and came into the legislature back 16 years ago, and now sits as vice chair of the House Judiciary Committee. And I want to give him a chance to go over what is called the Omnibus Proposal for Public Safety, which was initiated by the administration. And it's a long series of elements to it. But I think this is something that people continue to have strong opinions about. Well, this so-called revolving door, where you've got people that get involved in retail theft, and I call them frequent flyers. They continue to appear in our courts, sometimes even on a weekly basis, and get released, and then they're back again. And we've tried to give the judicial system a few more tools to work with to hold those folks a little bit more accountable. But anyway, I'll let Tom talk about some of the provisions that are included in this. So, Tom Burditt.
Thank you, Brian. Is it Brian, Mr. Collamore, or Senator Collamore?
It's whatever you want.
You got a lot of handles.
Yeah.
I guess what I want to touch on first is some work we did last year.
Okay.
In House Judiciary. A lot of people don't know. A lot of people talk about, as I do, a bail reform. And we did some bail reform last year that is working. And in a nutshell, what it is it's around repeat offenders and how we can withhold bail or implement bail. And Brian was at the meeting with the judicial system here in Rutland, and we heard that that little piece that we did, it is working. It is keeping people, making people accountable. It is taking some people off the streets. I'm not sure how the public feels about that right now, but I do want people to know that we are working on it, and that little piece is working. And another thing we did last year is we delayed a program called Raise the Age, and right now it's up to 19 years old. So under 19 years old can still be charged as juveniles, where their cases would go to the family court first before they went to criminal court. And full transparency, back in 2017, 2018, I voted to raise that age from 18 to 19, and because it sounded like a great idea, to take care of some of our youth. One of the unintended consequences that we didn't see is that you have these drug dealers from I'll just say south of here that took advantage of it. And what's happening is they're sending basically kids up here to transport their drugs, and and they aren't getting charged as adults. They're being let go, and they head back to the cities, never to be seen again. They aren't going to come back for any court cases here in Vermont. But so there was a push to raise that age to 22, and this has been on. To raise the age to 22 has been, it's been tried every year since 2018, I think it was, and it keeps getting pushed back. And we pushed it back again last year till next year, and it'll come back up. And my opinion, it's time to kill it. At that point, it's going to be around for 10 years. Hasn't been implemented. There's certain people, in the legislature that wants this implemented, but Department of, DCF, Department of Children and Families, has a big issue with it, and they can't handle the work. Is a big reason. They don't have the resources. They don't have the people, the money, and I think it's time to push that, off the table. And start working on something else that's going to be more important.
So would this bill reduce the age Or
it wouldn't go. It wouldn't go back to 18. It would keep it at 19
forever.
Well, potentially, unless it came back up
Okay.
again. Yeah.
All right.
But the main thing it doesn't raise it to 22.
Okay. All right. And I have my own fairly strong feelings about ages. So to me, you've got to come up with one age for pretty much everything. That sounds easier said than done, perhaps. But let's just consider in Brattleboro right now, and I think in maybe Winooski, there's a couple other communities, someone that is 16 years of age can vote on local municipal ballot items. Okay, so let's just put that one aside. So that's 16. When you're 18, you can do some things that you can't do when you're 16. And then when you're 21, you can do other things that you can't do when you're 18. As far as I understand, you can't drink until you're 21.
Right.
And you can't use marijuana until you're 21. So that's sort of on one side of it. You can't rent a car, by the way, until you're 25 or 26. That's not by statute. That's more the policy of the rental companies. But they ask for ID. I know that because my son when he was only 25, he couldn't rent. I had to sign for him, that kind of thing. But that's sort of a private business decision on the part of the rental companies. And maybe that's different now. So already we've got 4 different kind of ages. And yet, in what we saw as rationale for raising the age, one of the things that the proponents of that made a case for, well, the human brain is not developed fully, especially for some reason in males. And then you get a question of, okay, define a male. And that's a whole other topic. I don't want to get into that.
Yeah, we won't get into that one.
And so, you need to give them a little bit more time to develop the brain. Well, if that's true, if the brain isn't yet developed, I don't want people voting then. I feel very, very strongly about that. And I don't care what the age is. If it's 18, it used to be 18 in Vermont to drink alcohol when I was growing up here. And then when it changed, people went over to New York State because it was still 18. So I don't know what the right age is. But to me, if you make a case for the human brain not being developed until a certain age, then everything else should follow along with that. And you shouldn't be able to take out a loan, get married, vote, do whatever the other adult sort of activities are. And yet, that's a tough sell for a lot of people.
I agree. And I agree with everything you said about the age thing. I don't have a problem with the brain development thing. It's people that are on a higher pay scale than I am as far as making those decisions, with brain development. But now there's even talk of brain development isn't complete till you're 30.
Oh, well.
And I heard that recently. And again, as you were speaking, I was thinking of the same things you were saying. Is one thing around brain development is you're not going to make the right choices as often if your brain isn't developed. And so how can you make the right choice to vote at 16 years old when at a minimum you got 9 years of brain development left? It just doesn't make sense. And this age thing was on my mind this morning. Brian and I and a number of other legislators were at Rutland Mental Health this morning, and there was talk of involuntary commitment and that type of thing, and age falls into place on that too,
sure
depending on if you're an adult, which the legal age is 18. So, yeah.
All right. Well, those are the two provisions I see right up. So bail revocation and the so-called raise the age repeal, if you will, of moving it any further than it is now. 19, okay, fine. If that's the age, and everything else should follow along. Are there any other changes in this omnibus public safety bill that is it in House Judiciary now?
Not officially yet.
Oh, okay.
It's still with the lawyers and drafting, and,
okay.
And I'm gonna guess that after tomorrow it will officially be there. But along the same lines, something that we did last year has an effect on bail and crimes as far as the omnibus bill goes this year that we did. We used to expunge an incredible amount of crimes here in Vermont, and in a nutshell, definition of expungement: once a crime is expunged, it's gone, and it can't be used. It can't be used for information for like the crime research. To put their numbers together. It can't be used if somebody commits another crime. It can't be used against them. And what we did is we eliminated expungement last year. Which is going to be, we're going to get honest or true recidivism rates, so we know what's happening there and where the crimes are being recommitted, by doing the sealing and instead of expungement, and it's just going to help all the way around, as far as our criminal justice system goes, and that we're going to have real information, true information. Other than a lot of speculation.
I know there are 11 members of most of the House committees. The Senate, because there are fewer of us, have more like 5. So I'm wondering what the chances are that this bill, and your vice chair, and know Martin Lalonde, who's the chair of the committee fairly well, and he and I talk quite a bit as well, too, on some other stuff. But what are the chances, do you think, that this will, I assume it'll get referred to your committee, and then you guys will begin to work and maybe change some of the provisions. Do you think it's got some legs and some traction?
Not the whole thing.
Okay.
It will be piecemealed as it was last year. The bail reform raised the age, and the sealing versus expungement that I just referred to were all pieces of the omnibus bill from last year. And from what I understand, this year we're going to potentially be looking at the forensic facility. Vermont doesn't have a forensic facility, so if we have mental health cases, with a violence attached to it, we have no place to send these people.
Right.
You can't send them to jail. They don't belong in jail. I mean, you can't send them to a community home. So we really need to look at the idea of having a forensic facility.
And we had Woodside at one point, correct?
That was for the 18
youth.
and under.
Yeah,
that was for the youth, and that's a whole different thing that's happening where we're trying to build another facility for the youth.
And of course, the question then comes up, not in my backyard. So I think the big challenge will be to find a community in which there is agreement from the community members there that they want this.
I think it was Newberry that was looking at it originally. They didn't want it, so they ended up going to approaching Virgin's, where the youth
Woodside,
facility used to be years ago. The reform school it was referred to back then, and they ran into issues there because of, I don't remember exactly why, but it had to do with, I think, the age. For some reason, Virgins could only accept youth up to 18, and this facility wanted to 21, and it changed the whole dynamics of the thing, of the idea. And I believe if Virgins is out now, anyway.
I keep hearing Springfield, but I don't know whether that's a community that was ever asked whether or not they wanted it. I think that suggestion came from DOC, the Department of Corrections, but I could be wrong. I could be completely wrong.
Yeah, I don't know anything about the potential of having Springfield.
Okay. And that, to me, would relieve a lot of pressure. As you mentioned last week, you and I had a chance to sit with Dick Corsell and his crew at Rutland Mental Health and talk a lot about the pressure that they're going to face with respect to funding. They do, first of all, some great work, both at a community level, and it really is an important part of Rutland County. And yet, if they don't get the funding that they need, they can't continue to do what they do. So that's one issue. But if they don't continue to do what they do, the pressure increases on places like the Rutland Regional Medical Center, because that, unfortunately, is sort of the escape valve. The ED there, the emergency department, is seen by most people as, well, if you got no place else to go to the hospital.
Right. And what a great opportunity this is now. I'm glad you brought that up, because they are asking people not to go to the emergency room. Rutland Mental Health is. If you have a broken leg, if you're really,
they don't do too many appendectomies at Rutland Mental Health, but
right. If you're really physically sick, that type of thing, right. You go to the emergency room, but they're asking people to contact Rutland Mental Health if it is a mental health crisis going on. And if I remember right, their number is 775-1000.
It is.
If somebody needs that number. And that will go a long ways as far as the cost of health care, getting people sooner to the people they need to be in front of.
Yeah, and there's only so much room, physically, space at the Rutland Regional Medical Center for this type of intervention, and all too often, people who don't have a medical emergency but are going through a mental health crisis wind up there, have to be seen, and it just costs more money. And then you run the risk, unfortunately, of getting in a situation where the staff at the hospital is more likely to come into contact with people that may, cause them physical harm. And you don't want that to happen either. So I'm hoping that we could kind of take all these individual little pieces and put them together and figure out a way forward to lessen the pressure on the medical centers of the state and get people help that they need, and appropriately so. And I don't know what the answer is, but we'll be working on it.
Yeah, I don't know what the answer is either, Brian. And the thing is, for the most part, the people in the emergency room are there to deal with sicknesses or with injuries and that type of thing. And if people do go to the hospital for the mental health issues, they're going to end up with Rutland Mental Health anyway.
Right.
They're going to be referred over there, and it'll eliminate one step and get people to the help they need a little quicker.
We're talking to Representative Tom Burditt from West Rutland, who is Vice Chair of the House Judiciary Committee. And we're going to take our second break on Catamount Community Connection. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Catamount Community Connection. We're talking with Tom Burditt, representative from West Rutland. Every year there's another firearms bill. I hear tell there might be a couple of those coming up. I don't know whether they'll get taken up by your committee chair, whether they'll advance at all. I don't know in the Senate side. I guess there's one over there. I'm not as familiar with the Senate Judiciary. I should mention, by the way, we have 3 members of the Rutland delegation on the House Judiciary Committee. We have Tom Burditt, who we're talking with today, who's the vice chair. We have Alicia Millay, who took over for Butch Shaw. And we have Zach Harvey, who is from Castleton and also a member of that same committee. So if you have questions about this bill that Tom and I have been talking about or anything else, you can reach out to those people and at least know that you're talking to someone that represents you if you live in Rutland County.
Yeah, we do have a firearms bill. We have a couple of them. There was actually a great one on the wall last year, and what that amounted to, it was the main sponsor was Ann Donahue from Northfield,
yeah.
and I signed on to that bill. And what it does, it's kind of hard for me. It's kind of hard to believe that if somebody steals a firearm and the value is under $900, it's a misdemeanor. And what this bill simply does is anybody who steals a firearm, it's a felony,
regardless of its value.
Regardless of its value, I mean the $900 limit. I mean that's, to me, was more intended for retail theft and and that type of thing. But the problem that happened is I think everybody wants this bill to pass. It didn't move last year for whatever reason. That's beyond my pay grade, as far as the committee goes. But to me, it was a little bit of a disservice because they took that bill and attached some controversial gun legislation to it, and to try to get the controversial stuff through with the good things. And one of the controversial pieces is holding. I think it's controversial, is holding manufacturers responsible for the actions of whoever. And so, I mean, if you're going to hold firearms manufacturers responsible, do we have to move into manufacturers of vehicles or anything like that? So I'm going to try to get that separated out again and just take up the piece on the making the theft of firearms a felony. Other than that, that's the big one right now. Okay.
So no other judiciary bills that might interest people here in Rutland County in the House side right now?
Well, not really bills, I guess, but one thing I do want to talk about is the backlog in the court system, which we've dealt with a lot in my committee. And kudos to the judicial system in Rutland County, because we are addressing our backlog faster than any other county by far. It's a pat on the back to the judiciary system, to Ian Sullivan, our state's attorney. Everybody's doing a great job getting caught up on the backlog. And what that will do is, I mean, we have people that were charged with misdemeanors 2, 3, 4 years ago that haven't even seen the court system, and who knows how many. I mean, not everybody, but a lot of those people have committed even more misdemeanors because they know they're not going to go to court. They're not going to be held accountable. So the more and the faster that we can get this backlog cleaned up, the faster people are going to get into the court system, and if need be, held accountable, for what they've done.
And I know, and I can't remember the term for it, the governor came up with the idea, as far as I know, I could be completely wrong about that, but I don't think so, that there was a move to bring back a retired judge and have sessions in court of all those old cases. That's all they would take up are old cases, and immediately the backlog diminished. And I'm talking, they moved cases that were 4 or 5 years old in an hour and just got rid of a whole bunch of backlog. I wish I could remember the name of the procedure or the process, but that's only in Burlington right now, from what I understand. They haven't moved it anywhere else.
Yes.
Are you familiar with that?
A little bit. One thing I do want to give kudos to the governor, because he has filled all the judges' positions in the state. We were down judges, through the whole COVID era, and which attributed to the backlog some. But he's really stepped up to help get these judges appointed, and of course, with more judges, that's all the more cases we can address.
I do know, and I'll put a plug in for our drug treatment court. We used to call it drug court. Peg Flory and the late judge from Rutland County,
McCaffrey?
Yes, Judge Francis McCaffrey, kind of created that way back when. Now we refer to it as treatment court and not drug court, but the difference is similar. It's just definitional. That works very, very well, and I've been to a couple of those graduations. And what happens is someone that's convicted and sentenced to a particular offense, let's just say it's retail theft for the 15th time, they get told, here's what you can do. You can enter this program, follow the direct orders. You'll be drug tested every day. You got to have a job, whatever the conditions are, and then they're released. But the caveat is, if you don't graduate, and it does take a certain amount of months before you can graduate, the only alternative you have, you will be put in jail. You'll go to jail. You'll be incarcerated. There's no second chance. And it seems to have worked amazingly well. I know from speaking with, I guess I could say, former police chief Brian Kilcullen here in Rutland City. He would have officers go to that all the time and offer their support, and it became rather a unifying situation for everybody, for the person that was accused and convicted, and then all the support staff that they could have. Everybody rooted for this person to get through the treatment court and to graduate. And many of them, you talked about recidivism, it just doesn't happen when you get the good people working together to get something done. So my hat's off to both Judge McCaffrey and Peg Flory for pulling that together. And it does relieve the system of continuing to carry cases forward and forward and forward. So we've talked almost an hour here with Tom Burditt, who is the vice chair of the House Judiciary Committee. And I don't know if we got about 1 minute, Tom, if there's anything else you want to mention. Again, my apologies for recording this before the governor's budget address. By the time you hear this, that budget address will have been delivered about 5-6 days ago. And there's nothing we could do. I have no advanced knowledge. The governor didn't share his budget address with me before we started the show. But anyway, any last thoughts?
Oh, boy. Yeah, just for Rutland County, I guess. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but we really have some great representation from Rutland County. I'll start with our three senators, Senators Collamore, Williams, and Weeks. They do a great job for us up there. We here in Rutland County, we're lucky enough to have three people or three legislators, or two legislators and a senator that are in leadership of their parties up there, which to me bodes well for Rutland County and says the job that we're doing up there to get elected by people from around the state. Other than that, I guess that's all I have, Brian.
All right.
I really appreciate you having Representative McCoy, Pattie McCoy,
Yep.
and myself come in and talk with you. This was my first time coming in.
Okay, good. Well, I hope I made it easy for you. Some people are very leery. They don't want to go in a studio and record because they're afraid I'm going to ask them a gotcha question. But to me, that doesn't do any good.
Yeah, that goes along with the job, I guess.
Yeah.
That people think that's all people want to do is a gotcha thing, and I know you well enough that I didn't have that fear, and I know the show a little bit and know it's all about information.
Good. All right, well, we'll have you come back at some point. Thank you, Tom.
Sounds like a plan.
And we'll see all of you next week here on Catamount Community Connection.